Good evening. First message. Today is the last day you can register and be qualified to vote in November. The town clerk is open tonight, so come down and register if you need to. I'm happy to welcome all of you to this candidates forum for the mayor and council candidates for Washington Township. I'm from the League of Women Voters of Northern Valley. My name is Lucy Heller, and I will be your moderator this evening. And the League is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to promote understanding of major public policy issues, and to influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League functions at all three levels of government: national, state, and local. These debates are kind of the trademark of what people know about the League, but we have additional services as well. The National League is a fairly recent development, and it is still a work in progress, but we have a website called Vote 411. And I say it's a work in progress because putting the information on requires enough League volunteers to get it done. But when it's working correctly, if you go on the site, enter your address, you can find your polling place, you can find what all is on your ballot, and hopefully we'll, in a few years, get this perfected. And of course, if the goals of the League of Women Voters appeal to you, we welcome members, both men and women, and even as young as 16 now. We have student dues. So we'd love to have you join us. I'm required to tell you, which you probably all already know, this year you have 3 ways to vote. For the first time, we have in-person early voting, which will begin on the 23rd of October. And if you're in this area, you'll have to travel either to Rivervale or Wycliffe Lake to vote in person. And the voting lists are going to be electronic this year. So my strong advice is, I don't know when you sign electronically if it really looks like what your signature does in that old book that we used to sing. So I'd have an extra ID of some sort going to vote this year. And the electronic list will even be used at the polling places on Election Day itself. And then, of course, we've always had voting by mail, but you will not automatically receive a vote by mail ballot unless you have been doing that before. As you recall, because of COVID last year, everybody got a mail-in ballot. That's not happening this year. So if you need one, be sure and ask for it. And the clerk downstairs can help you with that as well. And I would just also let the public know the candidates have all signed an agreement that they will not take excerpts from this program and use in their campaign in any way. And when this is going to be broadcast several times, but it will all be shown without editing. It will be shown as a complete unit. So now, candidates have agreed that we should be informal. So we'll be using first names tonight, and our timekeepers are in the front here. Now your format says on general questions, you will be timed as a group, and you're going to be that team on my left, and you're the team on my right. For some questions, I'll say you don't need the 3 minutes. Let's do this one in 2. It's my job to make sure that one candidate in either team is not dominating the evening. So I may call on a particular person if I haven't heard from that person for a while. So The timekeeper has signals for when you have 30 seconds left and when you stop, okay? And it's, you people have to agree among yourselves, signal who you want to answer the question first. So I think that I like this format much better than having 6 people address the same question back and forth. Gets, I think, very boring. So we'll make this one work. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm also supposed to remind voters there will be 2 state questions on your ballot this year. And you want more information about it, go to LWV&J state website. But there are 2 questions that deal with gambling. The first would allow gambling on sports in New Jersey, which we now have, at least legally. And also, it extends what nonprofit groups can raise money by raffles to do. So don't forget to find those on your ballot. And always don't forget to look for the Board of Ed, which is in a corner all by itself. Those elections are important too. So let's get started, and let's see, since Kevin spoke last, I'm going to address the first question to the other team. First question.
Do we want to do opening statements?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Michael. Michael D.
Thank you.
Opening statement, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Lucy and the League of Women Voters, for hosting this important debate, and WCTV for filming this important debate. Tonight, I ask you for your vote in support of the DeSena Werfel Zitko team for mayor and council. Our team is dedicated to provide open, concise, transparent, and honest dialogue to our constituents, the township residents. Our diverse team, consisting of a municipal engineer, financial planner, and lifelong public servant of the township, makes the township choice for the future. If elected, I will continue to use my years of experience in the field of engineering to see existing community projects through completion and provide direction for the upcoming important priorities that affect our town. I will have no excuses of why township projects languish for years and require unacceptable redos. I will be on site and at meetings to ensure the projects are completed on time and budget. I will provide transparency and accountability regarding costs, timetables, and effectiveness of projects. I encourage an open door policy through monthly and informal gatherings where residents can meet with the mayor to ask questions and discuss their concerns. If elected, I will work with the council to establish liaisons to all township departments and ask each liaison to report back to its constituents on a monthly basis. Our team will always put the township residents first, not political party agendas. We will work with everyone to ensure the financial health of our township. Again, I ask you for your vote for DeSena Werfel Zitko, column 6.
A little overtime there.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. I was reading and couldn't see your sign.
Our next speaker is Peter.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I became mayor 4 years ago because I love Washington Township and the people in it. I grew up here. My extended family has proudly served this town for generations. I'm passionate about serving the residents. I am about getting them results. I enjoy the work. For me, being mayor is about the job, not the title. Not many politicians can honestly say to their constituents, the promises I've made are the promises I've kept. But I can. I did it with hard work. The promises were big, to bring long overdue and much needed updates and improvements to fruition, and that's exactly what I've done. I was honored when Tom and Daisy agreed to run with me. Together we have already accomplished great things for our town. But as always, there is still more work to do. Our recreation programs and facilities need expanding and updating, and I look forward to, along with my team and the rest of the council, bringing even more improvements and making even greater progress in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Now, Michael W.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Michael Werfel. I'm running for town council and I've lived in township for 15 years. In the past 4 years, my costs have gone up considerably because of the poor leadership, and that needs to change. 4 years ago, I also gave an opening statement, and our problems are oddly the same today, mainly because our opponents have not addressed the issues which are still facing us. They claim to have kept promises, but instead have not followed through with them. You have a difficult decision in figuring out between the two of us who you believe more, who you trust more, who you feel will represent you better. I'm running because I want to represent our town residents. I have served for 8 years on the zoning board. I'm a financial planner by trade. I will be a good steward of our money and make improvements in year one, not just before a re-election year to garner your votes. We want to hear from residents and take your feedback to make the township a great place to live and an affordable place to live. We ask for your vote for DeSena, Werfel, and Zitko on column 6.
Thank you. And Daisy.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Daisy Velez, and I am running for Washington Township Council. I am what some would call a newcomer, since my time in Township hasn't been quite as long as the rest of the gentlemen you see here tonight. I have lived here since 2014 with my husband and 3 children. However, my contributions to our town in my short time have far exceeded what my opponents have done in their many years. After moving into Township, I joined the Public Affairs Department as a volunteer, and I haven't looked back. Today, I serve as Director of Public Affairs and have taken the department to greater heights. Tonight, I sit here because Mayor Calamari saw my potential and dedication and knew I was a positive force for our town. Township needs people on council like myself with vision, energy, drive, and enthusiasm who are ready to take action. My successful track record as Director of Public Affairs demonstrates the level of my commitment to the residents and young families like myself who are here to make Township their forever home. Thank you.
Thank you. And Thomas.
Yes, good evening. My name is Thomas Sears and I'm running for council. Over my 39 years in the township, I've been a volunteer as a baseball coach, softball coach, basketball. I also have been a volunteer fire department, a member for over 39 years. I have held every rank in the fire department from firefighter to chief and fire director. I was appointed fire director by ex-mayor Mayor Sopkowitz. Also was elected to council to serve this town. During that period, I worked hard to start road paving programs and pushed to get our veterans housing developed and started. I was asked to run the green team with the help of some great volunteers, cleaned up our parks, waterways, and started planting trees in the township. My goal has always been to keep the family as a main part of this town and to keep this town as a family-oriented town. I ask for your support to continue to keep this goal going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker, opening statements, Kevin.
Thank you, Ms. Heller and the League of Women's Voters for hosting this event. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Zitko. I have been a resident of this town for 46 years. I have been a volunteer in this town since 2001 on the ambulance corps as well as the fire department, holding positions as captain of the ambulance corps and chief of the fire department. I would like to continue to serve this town and to be a voice and resource for the residents of the township. Thank you, everybody, and I ask for your support in column 6 for DeSena, Werfel, and Zitko.
Thank you. Now, we can move to questions. And we will begin questioning with the team to my left. And this question, a number of residents wanted to hear about this. And that is involving property at 450 Pascack Road. Generally, residents wanted to know, does the town plan to acquire the property? For what purpose? And what would be the cost to develop it for planned use? So, team to the left.
I think you should answer that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good question. I thank the residents who ever asked that. Yes, it is our intention to acquire the property. We are trying to work out something with the property owner, but we are not going to hesitate to use eminent domain if we cannot come up with a equitable agreement with the owner. We see it as a very good property for the town to own. It's adjacent to Memorial Field, and so it gives us a number of possibilities that we can use it for, to either expand the field, parking, maybe a combination of both, because anyone who visits the field knows that, parking gets tight very quickly with any event going on there, and I believe that covers it. Thank you.
Either of the other want to add?
I believe the mayor covered that answer.
Great, fine. And if we keep our answers short, we'll cover more issues. team to my right.
Thank you, Ms.
450 Pascack Road.
Thank you, Lucy. My vision for 450 Pascack Road is to have a conservation easement and let the trees remain. There's a lot of mature trees that are behind the home that currently exists on Pascack Road. I would like to see the town acquire the property using a funding source like the Gottheimer Fund we received last year, so it's not a tax impact to the township residents. And I'd like to see the trees, the remaining 100 feet past Pascack Road as a conservation easement to remain for generations to come. Leave it all trees. It's a huge slope differential, so to utilize that property will never be something we'd be able to do because it's 25 feet higher than the existing field. So to put, I don't want to see parking there. I want it to remain green space. And I'd like to see the home in the front demolished and either a affordable housing built there or some kind of unit that would serve the residents of the township. That's all I have, so thank you.
Any other comment?
I just think we should make sure that we're transparent on this. I don't think in the council meetings you've revealed even slightly what you did tonight, so it's grateful to finally hear that because it's not something that the public is aware of. And that's something that we're always going to strive to do.
Fine, thank you. And thank you all for being concise with your answers. Maybe we'll get to a lot of questions. This time, to the team on my right, a number of residents were concerned about the location of the DPW. Will the candidates tell town people what they intend, if they intend on keeping the DPW building in the same location as it's always been next to the municipal complex? And if not, what locations are being considered for the new DPW building and equipment?
Thank you, Lucy. The location of the DPW. So first thing is we've had our township architect working on this for the last 6 months. To date, the council, which I am a part of, has not seen any proposed locations or any kind of site maps for either the existing location or any other locations. So therefore, to discuss where it could be located, we haven't done our due diligence yet, or it's begun, but the council's not been made aware of that due diligence. We've looked at, we looked at the horse farm at one point in time to put the DPW there. It was deemed to be too small for our needs. There are other properties in township, but they're at a great cost, and our tax dollars are already spread way high. So I'd like to see what our architect has, and then make a better statement once we have that information.
Fine. Any other comments from your side? Fine.
Want to take this one?
Yeah, the location of DPW is really a hot topic in the community. We tried positioning equipment down to Sherry Field, and it was deemed not a safe location, environmental hazard. We have very limited property within the township. We are now, as you see outside, digging up the soil. It has to be tested for any pollution. Right now, I believe the council has not had a decision on where it's going to go, even though there are outroads out there looking for a location. There is not one at this time that would suit the needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I would just like to comment on the horse farm being too small. I disagree with that. Just the council in place at that time did not choose to move forward with that location.
Right. So the answer to the residents' question is keep watching.
That's a fair
That's a fair
statement, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Stay in touch.
Until we do groundbreaking, all options are on the table.
Okay. Let's see. This team goes first this time. And you've been talking all the time, so I want one of these other guys to start. This is a finance thing. And the residents are concerned about the debt of which the township has, and the use of bond anticipation notes. They would like an explanation of what bond anticipation notes are and how their use affects the town, as well as the tax ramifications if and when the administration goes to permanent bonding. Wait.
I can take that. So bond anticipation notes are a method of collecting ordinances and then going out to bond. I believe at the meeting, July 31st, when this was discussed, Tovo had, he's our current administrator, contemplated going out for a bond, but apparently didn't have the time because the budget got away from him. Now that's something that should not be tolerated. The fact is that we should pay our debt. Bond anticipation notes are akin to having a home equity loan or transferring balances on credit cards. It's not a responsible way to manage your finances, especially given interest rates where they are today. Interest rates are at an all-time low. It makes sense for us to take advantage of it. To kick the can down the road for even a year is a disaster, especially because the Treasury has gone up tremendously since the time that we've actually made that decision. Additionally, what they've done is they've used that to hide their actual spending. So if you go back and look, we have ordinances from 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020 bound into that 2021 bond anticipation note. And what they're doing is hiding what the actual spending is during that time, and then saying, hey, we're going to amortize it and pay for it, but the actual impact to the township would be on a $460,000 rateable, roughly $220 per home. Now, that's not a fair assessment because some people have higher values, but the key takeaway is that during this time, we haven't been upfront and transparent with our spending. We should have gone to bond with our firehouse. That's what was approved. But for whatever the reason, we kicked it down the road, and we only went for a ban when we were actually close to running out of money. Hopefully, I didn't use up too much time.
Fine. Any other members of the team fine with that?
I'm okay with
Fine.
this response.
So we'll go to the team to my left. Who would like to address this debt question?
Pete, want me to take that one? Okay. I disagree with a few things that were said. BAN stands for Bond Anticipation Note. So you use it to kickstart your projects, of which we have had many under my administration. I'm going to say I don't recall the administrator saying he did not have the time to do a bond, because it was never our intention to do a bond at this time. We listened to our professionals. Private sector accounting is not always the same as municipal accounting. That's why we have a bond counsel who is one of the pristine ones in the state, who advises us when to go to permanent spending based on the projects we are undertaking. He thinks next year is probably a good time to do so, because a lot of the projects will have been funded by bans, and according to him, it's much better to go to permanent bond with one bigger bond than many small ones. And so, again, it stands for Bond Anticipation Note. We anticipate going to a full bond, but with the number of projects going on, it was not the right time until perhaps next year. Thank you.
Other members of the team okay with that?
Yes.
Answer? Great. Thank you all for being succinct, not using all the time. Now, first, this question goes to the team on my left first. And a resident wants to know what are 2 priority issues for the town and how you would address them. Shall we let
Repeat
Daisy
that
speak?
question, I'm sorry.
Sure. The two priorities, 2 of your top priorities for priority issues in town. Maybe, Daisy, would you like to go first?
Thank you. So priority for me is to make sure that our community feels like they are a part of a bigger picture. They need to feel a sense of belonging, and I have worked as public affairs director to make sure our residents feel like their tax dollars are being seen. Right? It is important to me to bring events, opportunities for community engagement, especially after everything we've experienced due to COVID, where we have separated from our neighbors. It is important to bring that neighborhood feeling back into what new families are looking for. That would be one of my priorities.
Right. Anyone else?
I would think a second priority would be the safety and welfare of our community. As we invest more in our police departments, fire departments, and ambulance corps, we're getting much better equipment. We're getting new equipment. We're getting new buildings. We are doing a lot in the environmental end of this community by cleaning parks, planting more trees. The safety is a big issue, especially now that we are a very small town, but we're growing in a sense. So the priority are these two very important issues for me.
Great, thank you. Fine.
And I'll go very quick. Part of our platform, which I have not seen a platform from our opponents, is to upgrade the facilities and recreation programs. We have a lot of new families moving into town. That's what they are asking for, and so that's two things, both the facilities and the programs that we would like to enhance over the next few years.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Who wants to start first?
Can I start, Mrs. Heller? So my two priorities as your future mayor would be to, first thing, improve our recreation. 4 years ago, when I was elected to council, at my March meeting, I looked it up on YouTube, I asked, why can't we do a monthly recreation newsletter like our neighboring town of Westwood, and why can't we offer senior programs like Westwood does, and adult programs, and all kinds of different recreational programs, and we were told we didn't have the staff to do it. And 4 years later, we still don't have the staff to do it, and we keep getting rid of recreation sports in town and sending them to other towns. As the president of Washington Township Baseball and Softball, and in charge of the largest nonprofit recreation program we have in town, we've made leaps and bounds, even through COVID, to keep the program alive and offer more and more to our children. We added kickball 2 years ago to make, to add more things for the 4-year-olds. Our 13, 14U team is a diverse group, and we keep trying, and we keep having more and more teams and more children in the program. The second thing, my priority would be, is to get the intersection completed. We've been talking about it, we've been promised it, we still haven't put a shovel in the ground, and that would be my second biggest priority. That's all I have from me. If the rest of my team would like to speak now.
Just to add on to Mr. DeSena's comments about the recreation, recreation in this town needs to be more than just sports. We have no programs for teens currently. We have very few programs for seniors. I would look to expand some of those programs and build some of those programs to enable our teens to have something other than hanging out at the shopping center to be able to do, and to enrich our seniors' lives within town and make them a bigger part of our community as well.
Yeah, and I would just say, I think it's disingenuous to say that you've worked on the rec program when the fees have gone up for people in town, because you didn't have an open and transparent dialogue with Westwood that everyone knew about. Only at the last minute did you suddenly bring up the fact that we had to work out an agreement with them and possibly give them $20,000, but to not inflict that pain on the people who live in town, that's a miss. And I don't know how you could say that that's a part of something you've accomplished.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, and the team on the left will answer first this time. Several residents are concerned about reports of nepotism and cronyism in hiring for the township. What hiring practice would you follow to assure that the best qualified applicants will get the job?
You said left, you mean right?
This side.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
sorry.
So,
I'm confused.
The township does have a code of, does have an employee conduct book, which we rarely follow, but we would use we would request for qualifications, we would do RFQs to hire our new administrator, our new attorney, our new engineer, and whoever we may need to hire. But we would put out requests for qualifications. We would use the League of Municipalities to advertise, and we'd advertise in local newspapers, and we'd review all the bids and all the qualifications and make an informed judgment, not just because somebody's been here for so long. We talked about fresh faces and new faces. Well, it's time for a lot of these positions that are being held by people for a long time to have fresh faces and new faces brought into our township. So, we don't anticipate any nepotism or cronyism in me as mayor. Rest of the council.
I think simply one of the biggest goals in hiring any position for any job would be to have an open hiring process with the goal of hiring the best fit for the position.
Yeah, I think, something that's happened over the past 4 years is, and probably why you're getting this question, is we've had an attorney that's double billing for the same job. And that's something that Peter never held him accountable to. When he first took office, his council did not approve his appointment, and he still held him over. He held him over for another year. We've continued to have the same person in power for 39 years, and he's billed us approximately $3 million over his regular salary during that time. And his job description is to represent us as the lawyer, so he's the only person that we could actually complain to about it. So it's an awkward position. We also have to really look at, why are we doing no-bid contracts as a part of our regular practice? We should always go out to bid to get the best reasonable bid and avoid having people who are buddies of somebody in town and not even reprimanding people when they've been caught red-handed doing such a thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who wants to speak for?
I'll take that because nepotism became an issue for the council when I was becoming mayor, because as probably everyone who listened knows, I have a brother who serves the police department very proudly. He was on the force for over 20 years before I even got involved with politics, so there was no nepotism involved. Unlike my opponents here who chose to go on a different direction than the question actually said, I believe it was about nepotism and not about hiring practices or the attorney or anything like that. The council did pass an ordinance banning nepotism. I voted in favor of it because there is no room for nepotism, and even when a promotion was up that my brother was qualified for and in the running for, although I could have appointed that person, I got a coalition together of 3 ex-police chiefs, because who better to decide who a police chief should be than people that have held that seat. And they did a great interview process among the candidates, and I agreed whoever they chose I would go with, and that's what I did. So under my administration, there has absolutely been no nepotism, and there will not be in the future. It will not be tolerated.
Thank you. Any other comments?
So I just want to echo the mayor that there is already an ordinance in place against nepotism. I feel that anybody in this position should just be a qualified candidate, right? So, I just echo the sentiments of the mayor.
Great.
I do have a concern of some answers from the opponents, that people have been in the position too long and new faces have to be introduced into this township. We have a loyal, dedicated people within the township. Whether they're here 5 years or 10 years, it doesn't make them feel warm and comfortable when they're saying we need new faces in this community. As our attorney, he's a dedicated attorney. He has rules and regulations that are set forth by ordinance. Whether he bills us for a council meeting or he bills us for a legal issue, it is all rules and regulations. There's nothing hidden, and I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Do we still have time, Lucy, on our 3 minutes? I would just like to piggyback on what Tom said. Our attorney has been with us over 30 years. However, so has Westwood's. And I remember their council, when he crossed that milestone, gave him a mini celebration. In this town, we look to crucify people who have been here too long. Ken brings to us a governing body that comes and goes, a lot of stability and a lot of history.
Thanks. This time, the question will first be answered by the team on the left. A resident who was very much impacted by recent flooding wants to know, what action do you foresee to address the problem of flooding with the heavy storms we've had recently?
I can take that one because... do you want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's your turn.
Yeah. It's a very timely question in light of what we just went through with Ida. And my fellow mayors and I in the Pascack Valley Mayors Association just last week have formed a coalition because we don't seem to be getting any luck with FEMA or the DEP on an individual town basis. And so we're forming a coalition of all 10 towns in the Pascack Valley Mayors Association to address this on a bigger scale with those entities. We had a phone meeting with them last Friday. They were very thrilled to hear that we were doing that. They said we would be the first ones in the state to come up with such a coalition, to see what they can bring to the table with all of our streams and waterways that go through the town, that, as I told them, as a kid, in the 70s, I remembered seeing our waterways get dredged and like that, and I haven't seen it since then. That's, close to 50 years now of debris and silt being, in these waterways and not giving enough drainage when these storms happen. So we're trying something new with the coalition of towns to see if they deal with us as a bigger entity. Perhaps we can make inroads with the DEP and FEMA.
Right. Any other comments
Yes,
from your
ma'am.
team?
We also have a disadvantage of a private lake within the township that has 2 dams. And it's not the township's responsibility to lower those dams prior to any storm. So if those dams are not open to lower the lake, naturally the streams will back up and debris will collect, and they now have a problem. So we are working with the Lake Association to try and figure out a way to block the debris before it gets down to the stream, to the lake, will allow the lake to absorb as much water as possible. Thank you.
I just want to say that flooding and these new weather conditions that we are experiencing are new to many of us. So I think we need to study and see what is going on in order to address and prepare ourselves properly for these types of situations.
Good.
Thank you.
Fine. And other team on
Yes, thank you.
flooding?
Thank you, Lucy. There are many river basin coalitions in the state of New Jersey, the one being the biggest Pascack River Basin Coalition that's existed for many years adjacent to us. So it's nice to hear that we're forming our own river basin coalition. One of the things that we have an issue with is we have no stormwater programs in effect to look at our existing drainage and make repairs. We have many residents calling us saying they have collapsed pipes in their yards, they have clogged storm drains in their yards. It's nice hearing that Tom is working with the Lake Association. That's the first I'm hearing of it. I'm glad somebody's doing it because I haven't heard that until now. But I've dredged many rivers with the Bergen County Mosquito Commission as my former life in many towns in Bergen County. Once you get the permits, they will come in and dredge them for you. So we've never, to date, I checked with the Mosquito Commission, nobody from this town has ever requested any dredging in the last 25 years of our streams and waterways. So it's something to look at. But we need to get our infrastructure in order. Before storms, we need to go make sure that all the inlets are clean, that they're flowing properly, we don't have pipes collapse, and we're not doing that. So I'd like to see that happen and address some of these concerns for the residents. And we may need to add drainage in some areas that doesn't exist.
Beyond the statements by Mr. DeSena, as an emergency responder with the Borough of Westwood in the late 90s, I had responded to the flooding in Westwood with Hurricane Floyd. I have a lot of compassion for people who not only have gone through that once, but several, and even within this town with this last storm and with Hurricane Floyd, it's the same places typically over and over and over again that are subject to that flooding. So one of the big things is work with those residents and help, similar to how Hillsdale has done in the area behind Friendly's, to make the areas, whether it be through dredging, river cleanups, stream cleanups, less susceptible to flooding, lowering the dams, as Mr. Sears had mentioned. All of those are going to be part of a comprehensive flood program within the township, as I do believe, and I think most people do see, that this is going to be a more frequent occurrence than it has been in the past.
But I think, as a mayor and council, we need to review the areas that just had major flooding in town and have our engineer look at those areas and come up with solutions. We just can't keep passing the buck down the road.
Yeah, and additionally, I've been at meetings where I've seen residents complain about let's call it perpetual issues, where the sewers are backed up and leading into their house. What we often find is the engineer made recommendations that the township didn't follow through on. I think listening to residents, taking their feedback, and actually taking action on what they say is a great first step.
Thank you.
Thank you again, all of you, for staying within your time limits. And now, the right team. I think I remember correctly. At any rate, this subject's been touched on, but we'll go into a little bit more detail because residents have questions concerning a lack of transparency in town governance and mentioning restrictions on public speaking at council meetings and important decisions made in closed session and never reported. To address these concerns, the question to all is, how do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in town?
Well, I've been on the zoning board, and anyone who came to those meetings, they can tell you that we let people speak. And we have a dialogue with them. That's something that's been completely missing for the past 2 years. Ever since Feeney and Desiree were, put on the council, and I know those were selections that, Peter had a strong hand in, we have not had any dialogue. They actually cut it off. You have 5 minutes to speak, you're on a clock, and that's it. And if you're lucky, you might get a one-word reply, or they'll say they'll get back to you. And the biggest problem with that is you don't get to talk back. In other words, whatever we say up here on the dais, you don't get to respond. And that's awkward. And residents should feel like they're involved in the process. Some of the best decisions and outcomes of things that have happened on the board that I sit on come from the residents. And we should embrace that. We should want to hear from them. They will sometimes know more than we do on any given topic. And, it should be a very transparent process. Closed sessions happen altogether too often. There's no information about how we come to decisions, and I know Mike can speak to that probably a little bit more.
Yeah, so the lack of transparency on closed sessions, a lot of times, closed sessions are required, but we seem to, I've been complaining about it. We use a lot of closed sessions in this town, and it doesn't give the residents the transparency and the feeling of goodwill toward them because we're doing a lot of things in closed doors. It does have to happen sometimes, but I think we abuse we're skirting the law there. One of the things I brought up in my opening statement is I want to provide time for the residents to meet with the mayor and have an open door policy through monthly, informal gatherings or weekly informal gatherings, whatever they'd like. But we need to stop we need to let people know, like we just found out tonight that, we're meeting with the Lake Association. I'm a sitting councilman. That's the first time I've ever heard that. I found out today on Facebook that we started the soil remediation at the DPW site. These are things like, I know we want to get it out to constituents, but we're sitting council people, and we have to find a lot of our information from Facebook when the mayor posts it. And I don't think that's the way the government should be run, so.
In addition, I think there's other forums that we can research to allow residents a greater input back into the mayor and council and the administration. So one of the things I would do is to research some other options for that, whether it be online surveys that we can submit, open forums online, even within a certain time period, an open chat session where residents can come together and meet with us, whether virtually or in person, in order to express their concerns and compliments about the town that they live in.
Fine, thank you. And of course, this COVID pandemic has been a negative in terms of participation.
Yes.
The other team, would you like to respond? So how would you involve residents in decision-making?
Thank you. Just to refute a few things that our opponents said, absolutely not true about the soil removal. We said it was on the project tracker in the last council meeting. They did not give us an exact start date, but it was an approximate start date, and they did start today. I see that as a good thing. And yes, I put it out on Facebook to advise the residents of so, and also the parking up here is going to be severely impacted, so that went out. About closed sessions are a necessary evil. There have been a lot of them because under my administration, we're getting a lot of projects done. Each project, to a certain extent, requires closed session because if you don't go into closed session, in open, you're going to say, all right, well, we want to spend up to $1 million on that property, but we're going to put in our first offer at $600,000. Well, now you just told the person you're buying it from what your best offer is going to be. So closed sessions are a necessary evil. But however, at the end, when a decision has to be made, the public has its input via council meeting, the way they have it on every decision made, and the council must vote in public on the matter. So although a lot is done in closed sessions for negotiations, the public always has a chance to weigh in on it, and the council always must vote in public on it. About the 5 minutes, that is in the ordinance about meetings, is that each resident is allowed 5 minutes. If the council doesn't like it, the council can certainly change it, but that's what's in the ordinance. So don't blame the council president for enforcing ordinances that are on the books.
Thank you. I'd like to read some of the mayor's comments. We're not the only town that restricts people speaking before the council. There are multiple towns that only allow 3 minutes of speaking. We also do have availability for citizens to drop questions on our webpage to be answered, so that's nothing new. It's been there, it's always been there. And we do have to have closed sessions. We have a lot of COA projects that are going on. These have to be discussed in closed sessions before it's brought out to the community. So what is being said is being done today. There's nothing that is absolutely being hidden at all. Daisy, you have anything to add?
I believe in transparency. I think we need to be open and honest with our public. I think that our public is misinformed. A lot of the questions that they have been answered, but maybe they missed that particular council meeting where it was answered. So I propose an idea to have a frequently asked questions location on our website so that people can simply research and existing, why aren't the roads being paved sooner? And then they can find the answer that they're looking for. I don't think it's about a lack of transparency, but it's more about not knowing where to go and get the answers.
Very good.
Very good. Thank you all. And now the team on my left, and we'll have a nice, easy one here, and we're not going to need 3 minutes to do this. So I think each team can cover certainly within a minute and a half, timekeepers. Okay. So the question to this team is, the town has discussed a dog park for years. What's the holdup on the small project, and how will you make it a reality?
That's an interesting question, since I've been involved with researching dog parks within the township. There are a couple of locations that border wetlands that we are restricted from placing a dog park in there. We are looking, or we've been looking at Sherry Field. We did have an engineering study done on Sherry Field. Right now, we're just waiting for the engineer to finish the process. There was a lot of work down at Sherry Field to begin with, so that's the only holdup that I see right now.
Great.
Thank you.
And I would just like to add to that, that we, I believe it was early this year or late last year, we just received a grant for the dog park,
Right.
and so we did kind of wait to see if we would get the grant money, and we did, to save the taxpayers money. And also, we were considering the swim club property up until we lost it for, people can, they have their own opinions as to why we lost it, but that was one of the properties being considered. And so we are actively looking with the engineer to see which park and field would suit it best.
Fine. So who wants to
Can I make
speak
a
to the
comment?
dog park? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Didn't have your turn.
As I've spoken with Mr. Sears, I am a huge animal advocate, and seeing a dog park is one of my desires as a resident. I have my own dogs. I was a foster. So whatever needs to happen to get that dog park underway, my team knows that I'm on full support of that.
Thank you. Good. Dog park?
We've talked about a dog park. We've talked about many projects for years to come, but for years going by, the dog park's been a sense of, it's been on the agenda for 3 years. These projects should not take 3 years for a dog park. We're talking about chain link fencing for large dogs and chain link fencing for small dogs. I know there was a lot of cost involved originally. We did receive a grant. It does not cover the full cost of the dog park, but it's a part of the kitty, so it does help defray the cost of the dog park. But we should have had at least a location, even if we didn't have the funding for it. We've been talking about this for 3 years. It's time to get this done. So I'm all in favor of the dog park. Having 2 foster dogs right now, Wrigley and Lola, I love you guys. I hope you have a place to play soon, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
Right. dog lovers.
Yeah. I love dogs just as much as Mike does. He's met mine as well. And I think it's a good thing you brought up the fact that there's a grant. One of the things that's happened in town is sometimes we get grants, sometimes we spend it, sometimes we don't. I'd hate to see it fall by the wayside, so first and foremost, we should, make sure we find a location that's suitable and make it work, preferably not in wetlands, as Tom had alluded to, but just make sure we have space.
Likewise, I've grown up my entire life with dogs as pets. I would certainly be in favor of a dog park in any location that's appropriate.
Great. Thank you. And thank you all for keeping your answers short. So this time it's on my right team. And here's another short one, so I think we can keep this one to a minute and a half.
Okay.
Where will they store the leaves this year? In previous years, leaves were stored at Sherry Field, and it was problematic for residents who live there. The present administration is aware of this situation. So what are you going to do with the leaves, guys?
So 4 years ago, I asked that the town look into buying a tub grinder so we can grind up the leaves, just like other towns in Upper Bergen County do, and make less waste of the leaves by grinding them up or getting them out, or just directly shipping them out of town. And we've been looking at it for 4 years, and then all of a sudden this year, of course, during the election year, we decided that we're going to take the leaves out of town and get rid of them right away so we don't put them at Sherry, since we finally listened to the residents. It's been a problem of mine as president of baseball. Sherry Field parking lot gets destroyed every year by the leaf compost area that's created by all the leaves being dumped there. And it takes a long time for the area to recuperate after it's destroyed by having all these leaves sit there all winter. So I'm glad to see that the administration is finally moving the leaves out of town, and they're going to their final resting place as soon as they get out of the trucks and go into another town. So I'm glad we finally listened. Mike?
Any
No,
more
I
comments
agree with
on
Mike.
leaves?
I think I've heard at plenty of meetings that people are upset with the smell and the noise by their home. So the fact that we're finally addressing it, shockingly in an election year, kudos. It's getting done.
Good. Fine.
Peter,
The
you wanna
team,
start?
I
the leaves?
will, yes, thank you. Tub grinders, to my understanding, are a major expense and present storage problems when they are not in use, which storage is at a premium in our town. I'm so tired of hearing during council meetings and things that it's about election year politics. Nothing I do is election year driven. As issues come up, they get dealt with. Nothing is saved for an election year. If you have any evidence of that, bring it forward. Otherwise, please stop saying it. Yes, we did, we put in the budget this year for 2 new garbage trucks and seasonal workers to man those trucks to take them down to our leaf facility. Because of supply chain issues, we think only 1 truck may come in, so we may have to use Sherry this year for very short interim times until we can get that second garbage truck. I'm not up here to sugarcoat the residents when I can't. We will make a good effort to not have as many there this year as we have in prior years, but there may be some very temporary storage of it because of a global supply chain issue, not just the township.
Right. Other comments on leaves?
Yes, real quick, we have 30 seconds. Location. We don't have a lot of locations to store leaves or to store snow. The only location we have right now is Sherry Field, and it does take a beating, I will agree. But with the 2 new trucks and the moving of the leaves out of there, that's definitely going to help the community. And those trucks were not just bought this year, they were researched, and then they were planned in the budget. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. One of our team's goals is to improve the facilities, our fields. And as a parent with kids on that field, it is important that we address the leaves. We want to see better facilities for our children. So I think with the new trucks and the new leaf vacuum and everything that is coming our way, we are working towards achieving that goal of improving our fields and getting those leaves off of Sherry Field.
Okay, we're doing well on time, right? Okay, and we still have time for a few more questions. team on the left gets this one first. It's related. This resident wants to know how would you handle garbage and recycling pickup in town? Would you make changes or keep it the way it is, and why?
I'll take that one, if
Okay.
that's okay. Yes, this is something that we are currently looking at. The I always get the initials confused, RFQ, RFP. But however, whichever one it was about that thick for a garbage proposal. So it did take a significant amount of time to get it ready. However, with the council's blessing, I believe at the last meeting, we have put out to get bids for that service. When the bids come in, they will be weighed against, what the people are currently paying privately, and a, fiscally responsible decision will be made that says it's better left private, or the town will contract with one hauler who will take care of all the garbage and recycling. As far as a number of pickups and things, there are different options within that document that will be bid on, so we have a number of options to look at also.
Wait. Other
Yes,
comments?
I know the community has been asking for garbage pickup within their tax base, and the RFQ went out, and we're just waiting now to find out what the established fees will be, and then we will present it to the community for a vote. Thank you.
Okay, as a new resident, this was one of the issues I had moving into township, having to pay for bags. I found it unenvironmentally friendly. So it is really of importance to me. I've communicated with Mayor Calamari and Councilman Sears that we need to do something to get this task accomplished. So it's really exciting to see that now it's out to bid. It has my full support.
Do we still have time? Okay. I'd also like to point out, in the last council meeting, Councilman DeSena was against us putting the RFQ out at this time. He was more concerned about the bidders having to do work when they might not get the contract. So that shows his level of dedication to, the township residents as opposed to looking out for the haulers. I couldn't tell you why.
Okay, and now the team on my right will address the handling of garbage and recycling. If you keep the present system, or what changes you would.
So, Mrs. Heller, to respond to Mayor Calamari, my issue was that according to state law, we cannot go out to bid without the funding being in place. I've talked to the League of Department of Local Government Services. What we were doing is not correct. A true CFO would have caught that. Our purchasing agent should have caught that. We are doing something that is not correct. I'm not trying to protect the haulers. That is totally bogus. It's not right. I am trying to protect the citizens, because we shouldn't be going out to bid for stuff that we don't have funding for. That's my only problem with this. I agree we need to look into this. We've talked about it, and again, we do it here right before the election. So that's my answer.
As far as me, I'm in great support of researching the best way to provide this service to our residents. Whatever that way may be is going to take some research, but in talking to residents over the last few months, that was one of their #1 topics as to what we could do to improve this town. Many had expressed a desire to have that within their taxes, but again, in the end, it's going to take a little bit of research to figure out what is the most fiscally responsible way to implement this service.
Yeah, and just to the point, I mean, you want to be able to not take advantage of people to have them bid on something that they couldn't possibly get. You have no money to actually pay them. I know, speaking to the recycling part, when we had that up to bid, I had informally asked a question to one of the haulers in town as to what that would look like, cost-wise, and he actually called me back and couldn't believe that our current administrator had that position, because when asked about the recycling contracts in town, which one of the 4 that were listed on our website you were supposed to bid on, he said mush them all together. He said he's never heard that before. I asked him, in what situations do you see that? And he said, when we've already determined who's going to win the bid.
Okay, that closes that question, and now this team will get the next question, which relates to residents and their problems in obtaining permits or like building permits or inspections from local officials is a rather ornery and costly task, according to this resident, fraught with pitfalls and traps at every turn. The question is, what can be done to make the process more resident-friendly, transparent, and less costly? That is, in residents applying for permits or,
Sure. Is it our turn, Ms. Hill?
yeah.
So I'd like to see the building department open more hours. I'd like to see our construction code official here more than 1 hour a day. I've been complaining about this for 4 years. The department should be self-funded as per state regulation, and I've been told that's not true. It's not. It is true. We fund the department, and we still don't have a department that serves the needs of the township. We need more. We need to be able to respond to people. People are waiting 8, 9 months for building permits. We're waiting 3 months for zoning because one engineer is looking at it, then another engineer has to look at it, then the zoning official has to look at it. You know, it's the zoning official's job to determine if a variance is needed or not the engineer billing the applicants thousands of dollars in escrow. So we need to, refine these tasks so that we're not penalizing. We're dumping all the costs onto our constituents, and we shouldn't be doing that. We should be helping them make the town better, right? We want people to improve their homes. We want people to beautify their properties, right? We don't want to penalize them, and that's what we're doing. Every turn that people take, they're being penalized for beautifying their property, and we shouldn't be doing that. We need to find better ways to do that.
Right. I'm sorry, I should have indicated, this is a little bit more complicated.
So it's a 3
Let's go to 2 minutes
Okay.
for each town, team, okay?
I know I've seen it on the zoning board where people are complaining about the process they have to go through and the length of that process, the review, the cost. I know one of the things being on there that I've asked, and I know we recently sent a letter on this, was to try to review our ordinances because we see a lot of the same applications, and it's very costly. For someone to appear, to hire an engineer, to have that person here, an architect, produce all the plans, and even in a most recent meeting, someone thought that perhaps he was being singled out. And you recently heard that at a council meeting. People feel like if they complain, they get a fine. You don't want to have people feeling that this is a punitive process. If you want to make your home better, we should be thrilled. We're going to get more taxes. It's, that's just something that we should, fine tooth that. Go ahead.
Just to finalize on that, again, it's a review of the processes, a review of the way things are done, find a way to streamline the process and make it beneficial to our residents.
Thank you. This team.
I'd like to start off on this, if it's okay. Yes, we did have some problems in the building department. And also, it did not help during COVID times because a lot of people, in not going away, decided to do upgrades to their homes. Can't tell you the number of pool requests that the building department was dealing with. So there was a spike also, which exacerbated the problem. However, what we did at the beginning of this year is we did revamp the department and define the roles of everyone involved. Right now, we have 2 engineers. We have an engineer who does our board work of zoning and planning, and then we have the town engineer. So right now, the way it works is the zoning officer is the first one who looks at all applications, and then he decides if it needs to go to a board, which board it goes to. So like I said, there were some issues. We've worked them out. I understand the process is much better. However, there may still be a backlog because of the sheer volume of applications they had because of COVID and people doing work on their houses.
I would agree with the mayor that the COVID virus that hit this community did create a backlog. It did create different hours for our employees to work. But by sitting on the planning board for several years, there's rules and regulations that are dictated by us by the state that have to be followed. We just can't waiver them to have somebody get expedited in the process. We have to follow these rules and regulations by law. And a lot of citizens may not understand that, but we are bound by what the state and the laws and our ordinance we have to follow. So the mayor has revamped that building department, and I can tell you, I have not heard another complaint yet. Thank you.
And I just want to point out that this is one of our team's goal, to elevate safety and improve our ordinances to make it more efficient for our residents. We also want to see improvements in our town. We know that that brings more families into our community and more taxpayers.
Right, thank you. Yeah, we have time for one or two more questions. So this team will go first. This one is from a new resident who has concern about the number of new developments that are seem to be being approved in town. What effect do you see of these developments on the taxes, emergency services, and township living? How do you plan on assisting the emergency services with a possible increase in volume?
This is,
Problem with lots of towns around here, it's a
This
lot
is
of
for
new
us?
development.
Yes.
okay.
You want to start?
Yeah, I live on Van Emberg. You know, I am right in the thick of the development coming our way. So it is part of our plan to make sure that the new development adheres to all the guidelines necessary. But we have to follow the laws of the land. You know, some of us our hands are tied with state regulations. So it's really important for us to do what we can within our capacity to make sure that developments coming our way fit the footprint of Township.
Thank you, David. We are bound by COA laws, and there's no way that we could stop it. We have state that overrules us a lot. We try to coordinate the buildings as they're done, but to stop a development under COA is almost impossible. That's why the emergency services are getting a new building. They're getting 2 new fire trucks. We actually are getting new vehicles for the police. We're trying to coordinate everything that we can to make the development in this town less effective to our community. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We are against overdevelopment in town. You know, we got COA settlements. You know, I think we did pretty good on them compared to our surrounding towns. How it will affect taxes, no one can say until these places go up and have their valuations done. I think Tom already spoke about the emergency services, and, you know, we are ramping things up to be able to handle these things with greater populations. Our opponents put on their website that the town is staring at 350 new units. That's news to me, because doing quick math, there's approximate numbers, 50 in the American Dream, 70 American Dream, 50 at Franklin, and about 100 in an assisted living building. To me, that comes up to about 220. So I don't know where I've missed 130 or so to get to 350. But, you know, it's one of the many exaggerations that, you know, seem to come from our opponents. But yeah, we are against overdevelopment in all shapes and forms. As I've said many times, I think it's horrendous that the state can overturn our zoning laws and dictate what our community should be able to absorb with the school population and things like that. It's ridiculous, but, you know, we did the best settlement we could for ourselves and the taxpayers.
Okay, a little over time there, but complicated question, and certainly COA is affecting all the towns around here, so you're not unique. This team's opportunity to address the effects of new development that's being approved in town.
Well, as the fire chief this year, we've seen neighboring towns with huge developments going up. We have done everything we can on the fire department within the laws of the state to address and to prepare for the increase in development. I'm sure the ambulance corps is doing likewise as well. The new building for the fire and ambulance departments is going to be a great benefit to allow us to house the bigger equipment that's necessary. And, you know, obviously, any chance we can get to protect open space, I think it's a very important thing to do so. And again, as far as the laws that are kind of shoved upon us, preventing us from preserving every bit of open space that's left, is an unfortunate situation for us.
Yeah,
Other
so
comments?
I think there's a little bit of a misstatement there because, you can't possibly think that you have solved overdevelopment by allowing a development to take place. And I saw that announcement. That announcement took place one day after the zoning board approved 10 COA units, which would have fulfilled our obligation. But for some reason, we're completely ignored by this mayor and our attorney. And they decided that Franklin Court was a much better decision to make sure that that got done. Now, I don't know what the reasons were, but you can interpret there could be reasons, because you should look at every development that's taking place in town and say which one is best suited for us to use with the special master. But for some reason none of us will ever know, that was ignored. And I do believe that, yes, there are regulations that we need to follow, but we certainly should try and, negotiate in the best interests of our town. Go ahead, Mike.
So one of the things that was brought up, whether it's 350, 250, it doesn't matter. We're looking at a lot of development in town. Van Amberg is going to be a traffic nightmare. We have done nothing to, go to our elected leaders at the higher levels to do something about it. We haven't talked to the county about it. We have not talked to the school district about it. The schools are going to have to be expanded so much for these residents. It's going to be another huge tax increase. We haven't even started to speak. We talked about changing 168. 2 years ago, we went to our assembly people, and it got shut down because the mayor was going to handle it. And we still haven't had a meeting about it since he started to handle it. The mayor was all in favor of making Franklin Court rental units. Rental units, people have no, when you rent something, it's not like owning something, right? So we shouldn't have allowed rental units there. They should have been owner occupied. And they voted, the mayor was the first one to vote yes on it to make them rental units. They should be owner occupied units. We shouldn't be kowtowing to these developers and giving them the rental units. Thank you, Mrs. Heller.
Okay, I think we can do one more quickie, and we'll just give this 1 minute,
Okay.
and we'll let you go first. The numbers are close together. One resident claims that the town is going to get $900,000 in pandemic relief funds. Another resident suggests, what would you do if you suddenly got $1 million gift? So have fun.
Go ahead.
In a minute.
I think $1 million gift could go a long way towards developing a lot of the teen programs that would be necessary, senior programs, preserving some open space in town, and providing additional equipment for some of the essential town services.
Yeah, I think, given the fact that we've completely used up our, surplus that we had built up under Janet, I think I'd want to look to see what we could do to help offset future increases, because our town has had a 20% increase in cost, but you haven't seen it in your line items because of the fact that we've used the surplus up completely.
I'd like to see us offer more programs to the seniors, the younger children in town, the middle-aged children. We forget we have a demographic of 18 to 25-year-olds that we do nothing for. A lot of towns provide basketball leagues for them during the summer months. We've talked about this for years, and nothing's ever been done. We just need to do more for our residents, give them more programs, and offset those costs. All we do is pound the residents with costs, and that's what we need to stop doing. So I'd like to see that money used in that way, Mrs. Heller.
Right.
Thank you.
May I start?
Yeah.
This 900 or $1 million is not an out-and-out gift to the town. It is very restricted on what you can use it on. So you cannot use it for a lot of things that were just brought up over here. Our advisors, our auditors are still combing through the information to see what it can actually be used on. Glad the surplus was brought up because it gave me an opening. I have in front of me 10-year history of the surplus and how it was used. At its high in 2017, it was $5.2 million. In 2020, the balance was almost $3.5 million, 3.457. And in the 2020 that will be added in, there's $235,000 of unrealized revenue from the American Rescue Act that will replace what we had to use as unrealized revenue. So the surplus is still very healthy. It is not depleted in any way, shape, or form. And so, for those who keep accusing me and my administration of burning through the surplus, the numbers speak for themselves, And again, on the pandemic relief, it's very restricted as to what you can use that money for.
Right. If you want a half-a-minute comment. or
I
shall we
would
close?
support everything that the mayor has stated.
Fine.
We are bound by what we can do with that money.
Yes, I understand the pandemic money is restricted, and one question was just a gift.
Right.
So,
Can
Well,
I-
that's the question you asked us.
Right.
What would you do with it if you weren't bound?
yeah.
Can I
Okay.
respond, Lucy?
For a
To the
second or two.
$1 million gift? So I'm an educator, and my priority is always the children, right? My investment would be in education and our library programs. I find it very important that we foster learning into our children. Those are our future citizens. I want my children to want to stay in Township, to live here. So $1 million gift, I would do great things for our children.
Good, okay. So it's time to move to our closing statements, and as we indicated, we'll go in reverse order. And prior to your closing remarks, you have an opportunity, if you want to speak to any issue that's been discussed, if you wrote a note about that. So we will begin the closing statements with Kevin.
All right, I'm just going to keep mine.
Lucy, did you say we would have a minute or so just to bring up things apart from our closing
but-
statement?
When it's your turn for your closing statement, you can take a minute.
So what's the
For
total
that.
time for the closing statement?
Right, it's prior, when I call on you for your closing statement, 2 minutes is your closing statement, but if you have something else
Gotcha, thank you.
that you want to address for 1 minute.
Thank you,
that-
okay.
Okay,
Sorry to interrupt you, Kevin.
All right, Ms. Heller, I'm just going to keep it simple for me. I'd just like to thank the residents of the Township of Washington. I look forward to having the opportunity to serve the residents of this community. I promise to listen to any resident who may have a concern impartially, fairly, and without prejudice. And I thank you for hosting this event.
thank you, Kevin. And now Thomas, closing remarks, or if you want to comment on,
No, I read my closing remarks. Thank you, Lucy. I would like to thank everybody tonight for the debate. We all have lived through a very difficult time with the virus, and it takes true leadership and out-of-the-box thinking. This was truly shown by the leadership of Mayor Calamari. He worked and directed this town administration on some of the hardest regulations from the state. Many citizens were facing difficult times, but the mayor looked and applied ways of supporting the needs of this community. People seem to forget that the funds that were spent were needed to support the health and welfare of this community. First responders needed special safety protective equipment. Costs were not cheap, but the mayor got it done. The mayor also did not forget our most vulnerable seniors, bringing food and social needs to them. As the mental health of this community was being challenged, Mrs. Velez came up with new town events with a creative thinking, brought new social events to this town. She gathered a group of parents to make these events happen. These events made this nightmare of illness and death go away. Excuse me. And I thank her for the break of fresh air she brought to the community. As for myself, I have always made the town priority number one, whether sitting on the planning board or working with a great bunch of citizens and the green team members of this town. My goal has always been to keep as much of a small town life as possible. But please understand that forces outside of this community are constantly pushing to change our community, and I have fought a good fight to keep this town a family town. I have worked hard to help our veterans get the much needed assistance. My list of volunteerism to this town, from sports to firefighting, OEM, and other assignments, is well documented. As a council person, I will always make the Township of Washington and its citizens my priority. And I want to thank the League of Women's organization. Thank you and good night.
thank you. And Daisy?
Thank you. Helping society and making a difference have been two personal values I have spent a greater portion of my life carrying out. When I first moved to Township, I had the ability to choose where and who I wanted to align myself with. After careful observation, I quickly realized who were the noisemakers and who were the action takers. I am about making a difference that we can see and feel in our community. And I couldn't be more proud to run alongside Mayor Calamari and Councilman Tom Sears. They are men who want to see improvements in our town. They are men whose values align with mine. They have been an integral part of my success as your Director of Public Affairs. Not only have they shared their wealth of knowledge, but they have been the physical bodies behind the scenes, helping me take my visions to reality. We make a strong team. Of course, we can always improve. With the Calamari, Sears, and Velez team, you will see this happen. In fact, you have seen this happen. You have seen a new firehouse and ambulance building go up. We have moved towards a new DPW facility. We have purchased new equipment to bring better service to our residents. We have brought more opportunities for community bonding, especially during COVID. For all residents of all ages, we have summer concerts, summer movies, Halloween fun, and those are just a few to name. Right? I hope to add so many more to our list while keeping us on budget, always. Some people yell for change, but change is happening. It's not status quo. And if you think it is, it's because you haven't taken the time to enjoy what Township is all about. We shouldn't sit behind a keyboard and complain about what we don't have. That's just noise making. Be part of the solution. I ask you tonight to vote column 2. Let's work to make Township the envy of Bergen County, because where there is division, there is no improvement. I ask you to vote Calamari, Sears, and Velez because we are the action takers. Thank you, and thank you to the League of Women Voters.
And the next closing remarks are by Michael W. And if you want to refer to any previous issue, you have a minute for that purpose.
All right, perfect. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody who's on the dais. I think service is something that's hard to come by. And regardless of the outcome of the election, I think we should all maintain our involvement in the town, because this isn't easy. What we're doing, going around knocking on doors, talking to people to hear about what their issues are, that takes time, it takes energy, and as much as it may seem like we're at each other's throats from time to time, we're all good people and we're all trying to do what's best for the town. And so, having said that, there were a few things, and I just want to hit on them before I go into my closing remarks. If you have a nepotism ordinance, that's one thing, but you have to follow it. So you can't just say, we have an ordinance and there's a law, especially when the person enforcing it is the one who may be breaking it. And the rules and regulations that Tom made a reference to that the attorney has to follow, interestingly enough, and speaking to the Department of Labor, they would completely disagree with you, and they would say that's a direct violation. However, they do not get involved in municipal affairs, and they told me to report it to our Director of Law. So now for the closing statements. A lot has been said up here. A lot was said 4 years ago. In preparing for this, I saw that Peter said he wanted to listen to the residents, even when we disagree. And I'm curious if anybody feels like that's happened, specifically over the past 2 years. I will promise you that as a council person, I will fight to make sure that you can have a dialogue with us. I will make sure that you will not get cut off if you're saying something important. I understand that there are 5-minute rules for reasons, but we can certainly break them from time to time when people are speaking on something that they're passionate about. There's things that needed to get done, and they're still not done. 4 years ago, the intersection was supposed to be done on day 1. If you drive through there, you may have noticed it hasn't changed one bit. DPW soil remediation was a day 1 priority. How can we let water to possibly be contaminated for the people who are living on Pascack Road and to put that off for 4 years? It's a liability. I'm shocked that we're just now talking about shovels in the ground. That shouldn't be something you're proud of. You had 4 years to improve Memorial Field and rec programs, and now we have less rec programs than 4 years ago. And Memorial Field, well, we budgeted for it. 2019, we had 30,000 allocated for it. We only spent 10. 2018, we had 40,000 allocated. We only spent 7. We just simply removed Rehab Memorial Field because it was obvious we didn't care about it. This year, we saw some no-bid lights go up because we needed to get some votes for Peter. It's an unfortunate situation. Only in this year we started to see a little bit of action, but it still wasn't done properly. We're not going out to bids. And you really want to make sure that the promises that they've been breaking, that they promised this, that, and the other thing, that you go with a group of people that can actually give you change. I said it 4 years ago, and the fact still remains. We're your best bet to have a better township. We're going to listen to you, we want to hear from you, and we have a plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll use my 1 minute, so please let me know when that's up. There's been so much for me to respond to. I'll respond to only a few because, again, we respectfully disagree on many things. It was said we missed an opportunity with Westwood on recreation. I brought when Westwood came to us, I brought it to both my rec advisory board and the council about that sum of money they were looking for. Both of those bodies turned it down unanimously. So it was not a missed opportunity, but we just did not see the need to fork over 20 grand blindly to Westwood. We'd rather almost, if they're going to do it on a participation basis like they went ahead with. Collapsed drains on private property, we brought some of those to the council. They said we're not spending any money on private property to fix drains. Closed session minutes, I find this very interesting because I don't think Councilman DeSena has ever voted to not go into a closed session, but then to complain about it, that seems disingenuous. And also, I don't believe he released any closed session minutes during his tenure as council president or even now. Now, going to my closing, thank you. I'm running for re-election to serve you, the residents. I have enjoyed bringing a great many of improvements to our town. It is a record I am proud of. I would like to recap just a few of our accomplishments during the past 4 years. We're building a new firehouse and EMS headquarters. We obtained 1 new fire truck and have another on the way. We revitalized the DPW with proper staffing and equipment. We updated and modernized the police department's scheduling and their equipment, thereby reducing costs year after year. Our dispatch center is fully staffed by civilians, again reducing costs. We greatly expanded our community events, including our summer rec program. We made the Green Team a vital organization to promote many initiatives for our environment, including working with our school children. The intersection project has been turned back over to the county for completion. It has been a busy 4 years and we accomplished a lot, even during a pandemic. They are what the voters entrusted me to achieve 4 years ago. Any one or two of those accomplishments would be considered tremendous progress for any town and would make my past 4 years as mayor a success. But to accomplish them all was truly staggering. I am proud of those who contributed to make them happen. I want to continue to build on and expand these successes. I want Washington Township to be the best it can be. Together we can continue the progress. We can expand and update our recreation programs for all ages. We can provide facilities that meet our needs and that we can all be proud of. I assembled a team of dynamic individuals who are already heavily involved in this town and who work tirelessly to make it the incredible place it is today. They give their time, effort, and passion selflessly to the residents. They have proven success in all that they do as both officials and volunteers. We ask for your vote so we can achieve our common goal of making Washington Township not just the best small town in New Jersey, but the best small town anywhere. Thank you, and again, thank you for the League of Women Voters and everyone who made this possible, our opponents, WCTV, and anyone who I may be forgetting.
And finally, Michael
First
D.
minute, I just wanted to discuss 2 things. The mayor talks about, the Westwood recreation fiasco. Well, the mayor and the rec director met for 6 months and had dialogue back and forth that this council never saw until the mayor of Westwood released a press article stating that they've been discussing it for 6 months. We arrived at a council meeting and said Westwood wants $20,000, never being informed that there was dialogue going back and forth for 6 months. Secondly, on closed session, I have never released closed session minutes because Mr. Poller hasn't given me closed session minutes to release. It is up to the town attorney to provide those closed session minutes to be disseminated to the public. He, to date, has not given me any of my closed session meetings. So therefore, I have not released them because I've asked to release them, but he has never provided them. Thank you. So I would like to thank everybody up on the dais for a wonderful debate. It was a great hour and a half we spent together. I hope we all leave, we're all friends, we all volunteer our time, And I just want to thank the League of Women Voters for all your time tonight and putting this together for such a wonderful event. WCTV for filming this, and our constituents for watching us. You know, I grew up in a small town in Lower Bergen County, and I came up here for, you know, I was always taught to do the right thing when no one is looking. My father was a hardworking man. He worked a hard life, and he always taught us to be good citizens and do as much as we could. And you don't need to take all the credit for everything you do. And I think, you know, a lot of the accomplishments the mayor has pointed out tonight was a team effort. That team effort was brought to you 4 years ago when the council up here decided to start funding these items. That council took the initiative to start putting the budgets required in place to get these projects going. Peter sat up here 4 years before that and never funded any of those projects. He was council president, he was a sitting councilman for 4 years, and we never heard any of those projects discussed once, even though all those projects were vital to our community. So a lot of the thanks goes to the council and the past councilman, who is no longer with us, for all their effort to get these projects funded. And those are the true heroes that got this stuff done. We don't all need to take, you know, credit that all of his accomplishments. We all should take the credit for the accomplishments, because it was a team effort by the mayor and the council to get these projects done. We sat for a year idle on the intersection because he wanted to give the old engineer time to get it done. 14 months went by until we hired a special engineer that has ties to Bergen County to get that project done. We're still 3 years later, and it's just getting back to the county. It should not take this long for government projects to get done. I've built larger intersections in less than 8 months, just like you can see in Paramus for the new 7-Eleven. That's a larger intersection. That was approved by their planning board. 7-Eleven was opened, and the new intersection was built in less than a year. I've been told I have to stop, so I will stop.
So, thank you all, and to the residents of Washington Township, now it's up to you. The choice is yours. Remember to vote early, by mail, or on November 2nd at your regular polling place. If we had an audience, we'd give you a big applause.
Thank you. I don't know if we're allowed to shake hands, but I'd like to shake everybody's hands.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Yes, I hope they're catching that on TV.
Thank you.
Sorry.